The W220 is a seldom-loved model in Mercedes' long line of full-size sedans. A decade ago, I shared the then popular opinion that it was a basket case of rust and electrical gremlins. However, this view changed as I learned more, and I got a well-used 2005 S500 long wheelbase last December in China, precisely on Christmas Eve. This May, I took a month-long road trip of 8,000 kilometers across southern China. In this video, I will share a few facts and opinions about the W220, particularly the S500. Then I will talk about my experience with this vehicle, why I bought it, what problems I have had, and how I did over the road trip. First off, I have compiled a list of facts about the W220. 1. The W220 is considerably lighter than the W140 that came before it and the W221 that came after, combined with an aluminum subframe which was cut on the W221. The W220 handles better than one would likely believe. It also feels like a smaller car than other S-classes. 2. The W220 started off in the era of Mercedes where rust was a huge issue. Cars before, somewhere in 2003, when they introduced double galvanizing, are rust buckets. Even later models are not perfect in this regard. 3. Like a typical German car of the era, the W220 likes to develop electrical faults. Earlier models fare the worst, though it is really the 2005 models that are somewhat better. 4. The W220 comes with many vacuum-operated components. They are served by a pneumatic system equipment PSE pump. This includes door and trunk locks, soft close, and the seat lumbar support adjustment. On cars equipped with dynamic seats, that is also operated by the PSE pump. One interesting fact is that the PSE pump has a small air filter, though I have never heard of people servicing that part. Another thing to note is that PSE pump replacements must be coded to the car to identify which services exist. Otherwise, the pump burns out quickly from overwork. PSE-related features are one of the common failure points of the W220 S-Class, with soft closed doors and trunk being the worst offenders. 5. Cars equipped with keyless go have more complicated door locks. There is a so-called keyless go lift solenoid that unlocks the doors only when the car is unlocked using kg, as the doors would normally be unlocked using PSE. The pneumatic unlock is considered not fast enough, so Mercedes added this lift solenoid. Later models will use pure electric door locks like normal cars. 6. The 5G-tronic automatic transmission is widely regarded as a fine unit with smooth shifts and long service life. It was undermined by the German trend of lifetime filled fluid of the period, as many cars never received a fluid service. Ironically, it was the last transmission from Germany that is easy to service, thanks to the dipstick tube, even though Mercedes saved on the dipstick itself. 7. The 7G-tronic automatic transmission is mechanically robust. However, Mercedes struggled with the valve block. Early units, as fitted in the facelifted W220 S500, are known to dish out low-quality shifts, and the solenoids and sensors can fail prematurely. 8. The M137 naturally aspirated V12 engine found in the pre-facelift S600 is highly problematic. Its biggest issues include out-of-round cylinders and disastrous oil cooler design. With the block going out of round dynamically, The engine easily overheats while consuming large amounts of oil. Premature wear is also in the cards. Mercedes rectified the problem with the bi-turbo V12 M275 engine, a variant of which is still built to this day. 9. The M113 V8 and M112 V6 petrol engines in all displacements and with or without supercharger are highly robust. They are somewhat crude, simple engines. Compared to the M119 V8 that came before it, the M113 is much more cheaply made. It is open deck with a single overhead camshaft design. Mercedes introduced the dual spark plugs per cylinder. In my opinion, and this is only opinion, they did it to justify the single overhead camshaft design. I do not believe dual spark plugs help efficiency or power delivery in the real world. They just double the servicing cost. It has been said that the M113 is 40% cheaper to make than the M119 before it. Still, the much lighter engine is proven to be torquey and highly reliable. The M112 V6 is just an M113 with 2 cylinders chopped off. 10. The most reliable engines in the W220 were indeed the OM613 and OM648 inline-6 turbo diesels. They had an aeron block with an aluminum head. They were exceptionally strong and are the pinnacle of Mercedes-Benz passenger diesel engines. They are easy to service and easily last over 500,000 kilometers. Unfortunately, the same cannot be said for the OM628 bi-turbo V8 diesel found in the S500, which is to be avoided, especially since the inline sixes can easily be tuned for more power. 11. Last but not least, the ABC active body control suspension is disastrous. It is found in all AMGs and the S600. Some pitiful S500s were also optioned with it. In my opinion, the system is not fit for automotive use, as hydraulic systems do not last the lifetime of a car. I have the same opinion for all ABC implementations, including the second-gen ones and the Magic Body Control MBC found in the W222. Apparently, Mercedes feels the same and has since eliminated the system from its vehicle lineup. Interestingly, for the R230 SL65 AMG Black Series, Mercedes converted the ABC to coilover from factory, like many owners of ABC vehicles are doing these days. Now that we have gone over the list of facts, let me explain my thought process in buying this 2005 S500. Essentially, I wanted a relatively large displacement, rear-wheel drive car that is easy to buy and not difficult to fix. Not many cars fitting these criteria are available. Ideally, I would prefer a coupe, but these are all considered luxury items in China. Only full-size sedans that owners no longer look rich in are reasonably priced. Cars I can live with that almost fit these criteria include the Lexus LS430, the W220 S500 and S600, and more on this later, and the Jaguar X350 XJ. The Jag is out because there are very few V8s in the country for sale. I wanted to get a facelifted S600 and do the coilover conversion. Unfortunately, these are hard to find in acceptable condition. The reason is that in China, many drive them like snails and idle them too much, and the M275 does not like idling. In fact, I see many Japanese re-imports of these in Europe with low mileage. They likely also suffer from poor running conditions due to excessive idling. I came across this very well-priced 2005 S500 in reasonable condition and picked it up. Naturally, the car did not come perfect, so what have I done in terms of repairs? The first thing that I replaced was the thermostat. Even before buying the car, I saw the low coolant temperature, so I ordered a thermostat directly from the Mercedes dealer here in China. They had to import one from Germany. This is strange because Mercedes must have sold hundreds of thousands of cars that use the exact same thermostat in China. Interestingly, the thermostat did not fail. Rather, it was a counterfeit that is marked 72 Celsius instead of 87 Celsius for the authentic part. Then I had the dealer change the transmission fluid. I did this because their quote was not much higher than the fluid plus filter would cost me, as some genuine parts are quite expensive in China. Unfortunately, they are completely incompetent and use the wrong green fluid for later 7G-tronic Plus transmission with start-stop. That fluid has about 1/3 lower viscosity and is not really compatible. I had to call Mercedes multiple times to have the dealer do 2 drains of the fluid with the correct one. Interestingly, even the fluid that they first drained was green, which suggests that the previous owner had the same experience but did not know better. I also had to replace the engine mounts and the transmission mount. The engine mounts were factory original, while the transmission mount had been replaced at some point. In fact, I would not be surprised if the transmission had been rebuilt at some point. The symptom for the engine mounts were vibrations between 2000 and 3000 RPMs, but interestingly, not at idle. The last things that I replaced were the ball joints on the left front side. The ball joints had not failed, but their bolts had torn. Other than that, I changed all the fluids and filters, including the aromatic pump filter and the fuel filter. The one thing that I cannot fix is the keyless go system that refuses to recognize the key. I have tried to have the original key repaired and to have a new key, though not original, made, and nothing worked. The system all tests fine but just does not recognize the key. My suspicion is that since the previous owner made an aftermarket key, the crack somehow disturbed the coding. Once weather warmed up, I took the S500 on a road trip from Tianjin in northern China to Hainan, which is an island in the very south of China. I was pleasantly surprised to see the fuel consumption drop to as low as 8.1 liters per 100 kilometers when cruising on the motorway. The car is rather smooth and quiet on the motorway, and with the M113, I never doubted whether it would start, which is perhaps not a sure thing these days with modern German cars. In just under 8,000 kilometers, including mostly long-distance driving but also about a third in-town driving, I averaged 9.6 liters per 100 kilometers or 24.5 mpg. Of course, it would not be a German car if it never broke down, and it did so twice. The first time was when I was pulling into the parking lot of a hotel. Suddenly, I lost power steering. The car had to be towed, and it was the banjo bolt of the high-pressure line on the steering rack that came loose. I would ascribe this to the off-roading that I had to do one evening when I had to stay overnight at this quote-unquote city that turned out to have roads with meter-wide craters everywhere. I indeed had to paint the metal shield under the engine later for the scratches ostensibly from bottoming out. The second time was when I was just about to embark the ferry from Hainan to the mainland. I noticed that the right rear suspension was sagging. I managed to limp a couple of days and had the air strut replaced in Foshan. Apparently, this was the only original air strut from Mercedes, with the other 3 all being replacements. Besides the breakdowns, I had to add 3.6 liters of engine oil. This had been improving, so I think clogged oil return rings are partly to blame. I also suspect the PCV system, due to the passive design, contributed. Indeed, I found a small puddle of oil sludge in the tube that connects the MAF sensor to the throttle body. Old valve stem seals must have not helped either. So after all this, what do I think? Would I recommend someone to get a W220, especially an S500? I would say that it has turned out to be about as reliable as I expected. For my criteria, this is a reasonable car. It is probably much more reasonable than the S600 that I wanted, even though it is not a V12. I would recommend the W220 and S500 in particular to someone who can do some DIY work. In fact, I like the way it looks more than the W221 that came after it, with the exception of the AMG. I think the AMGs look better in W221 guise. Indeed, I think the W221 S65 AMG is the ultimate Mercedes AMG sedan, as the W222 lost its uniqueness and the W223 became irrelevant. Even though the car is not loved by many, its drivetrain is quite robust. Indeed, it seems that even the V8 diesels is better than diesels from Volkswagen and BMW of the period. That is all I have to say about the W220 Mercedes S-Class. Thanks for watching and have a great day.